Okay, the internet, at least the internet we all know and use, is chock full of various different messaging platforms. Discord, WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, even Facebook Messenger or Instagram, or any other social media platform like Twitter and Snapchat fulfill that purpose. But one platform in particular, that platform being Matrix, is actually deeply connected to various governments while seeming to fail in every conceivable sense of the word at basic moderation or harm prevention. I should be clear, I'm not talking about general TOS violations or low grade infractions by isolated bad apples. I'm talking about a pervasive atmosphere where the messaging protocol known as Matrix has become an internet snake pit filled to bursting with the worst kinds of content imaginable. Now, that kind of issue is by no means generally unique. Encrypted messaging apps will always appeal to bad actors, but the curious case of Matrix forces one to be skeptical about whether or not the problem is deliberately allowed to exist or, at the very least, in my opinion, ignored almost completely despite repeated warnings. This is the part where I have to give some technical terminology. Matrix, aside from an excellent movie trilogy, refers to an open protocol for decentralized communication with a caretaking organization above it called the Matrix Foundation. This foundation is responsible for platform development and funding, but one step above them, at least in terms of funding, is a group called Element. Element is a startup founded by the same team that initially created Matrix, with enormous amounts of success in tow, which routinely injects capital back into the Matrix ecosystem through the Matrix Foundation as a result of venture capital and various different funding rounds. That's important because Element, as per their own statements and PR releases, sells their product directly to governments as well as law enforcement. Reading from a post that they made on Mastodon, quote, "Yes, we fund Matrix Dev by selling encrypted messaging to governments, which includes police. If you don't like that, then please feel free to use a different app." End quote. Further emphasizing this, we can see very proud announcements from Element, multiple of them, such as this, advertising that the Bundeswehr, which is the armed forces for the Federal Republic of Germany, build on their platform, or shop, I don't know how to say that, which is how French government officials both communicate and disseminate information. Just to really drive the point home, here's a piece from Wired magazine about how governments and spies text each other, which focuses on Matrix as their chosen messaging app for top secret communications. My point here is that Element is a widely embraced by government clients, that is, highly successful application directly funding a group called the Matrix Foundation, which is the custodian of matrix.org, which is itself one of the most horrifying places on all of the internet. Hopefully that all makes sense, but now we need to describe the technical function of Matrix, and this is where I should make it known that this particular story was made possible by a source, an expert source on the inner workings of Matrix as a platform, which is where I got the majority of this subsequent information. And they did request anonymity, so I will be honoring that. Matrix is not like other messaging applications. Using Discord as an example, or practically any other application as an example for that matter, when you have a chat room hosted on a given server, that chat room is subservient to the server itself. In simple terms, if you have a chat room in a Discord community, the room can be pulled down or changed at any given point in time by anyone with moderation capabilities on that server, because the room is downstream from the server. That seems pretty logical, to be honest, because when you have a room inside a server, obviously that server then controls that room. But the same is not fully true when it comes to Matrix. Rather than servers hosting and controlling the chat rooms, servers actually hoist those chat rooms, a little bit similar to how a torrent ecosystem seeds files to each other. Chat rooms on Matrix are actually made possible by every single home server contributing to them, and cannot be taken down or modified unless a moderator or admin from every single participating server does so simultaneously. Sure, some people may be thinking, that's great though, censorship resistant in particular, which it is, until you realize that home servers are often spun up and abandoned. This means that there are chat rooms hoisted by those home servers, which cannot really be moderated at all by anyone, and these abandoned spaces can then be taken over or populated by criminals, largely posting what's called CSAM, which means child sexual abuse material. What's worse is that far from an issue purely relegated to the fringes of the application, which does exist elsewhere and seems to be a common pattern with online spaces, this problem is now pervasive to the very home server of Matrix itself, matrix.org. Because of the way the system functions, rooms can be spun up very easily, but they become nearly impossible to shut down. And having identified this function, among others, which I'll discuss in just a second here, there is a very large cohort of people using the application precisely for this reason, sharing, and participating in rooms intended to be central hubs for insidious content. The issue is so bad now, it's become an open secret among server admins. Working directly with my source to properly understand who has expertise on the topic and is becoming much more vocal about it recently, I was shown a moderation system that gathers reported servers, rooms, and users, categorizing them by tags, in which 120,000 known users, just through this one community-sourced moderation attempt, are engaging with this material. 94,000 of them participating in rooms for the purpose of sharing CSAM. Now, a reasonable question would be, how does this tool work? And the answer is that while somehow viewed as a totally private, completely secure messaging framework by governments, Matrix is actually the exact opposite when it comes to logging activity. See, rooms exist in a perpetual state of write only, as in read and write, not right or wrong. This means that when joining a room and participating in the discussion or sharing material of any kind, you are always adding to what's called the room state, which can never be modified. In a way, it's similar to blockchain, as in people thinking it's somehow private and super secure, when in reality, pretty much everything is always documented and public. But the benefit of this is that a trove of information is contained in the room state file, which can then be scraped and analyzed. When clearly abusive rooms are identified, the room state gets dumped, turned into a JSON file, and added to a Git repository, where scripts can be used to grab users, add them to summary lists, and start producing a sort of shared ban list to try and fight back against the problem. That shared ban list is where we get numbers like 94,000 people participating in rooms formed around spreading CSAM, and it's also how I was able to verify the extent of the problem. Here's the part that might not yet have been fully communicated. It doesn't matter who you are or what home server you run. If you operate a portion of the Matrix network, your infrastructure can, and probably is being used, to support and spread this material actively. Because of the way it's designed, if you have a personal home server and someone from that home server goes and joins a room designed to share illegal content, your home server now gets roped into seeding that room, alongside every other home server that people joined it from, making it so that a massive portion of the Matrix communication platform is now seeding CSAM rooms, regardless of whether or not they're even aware of it. That problem can actually be very clearly demonstrated by a company called NitroKey. To be clear, NitroKey, which is similar to YubiKey, it's just a security hardware company, very obviously does not intentionally make any of this possible or condone it. Not at all. But their corporate server, accessible through a link directly on their website homepage, which is likely why it's now being used in this way because of accessibility, is now seeding a massive number of rooms where pedophiles and criminals share illegal content regularly. By estimate of my source through the data that they've collected, 295 different rooms are being hosted in part by NitroKey on their home server because someone joined or initially created those rooms through them. The footage in the background right now has to be censored completely. It contains active URLs as well as descriptive terms that just can't be shown here on YouTube. But this is the part where I make it very clear that this problem is extremely pervasive. These rooms, thousands of them, do not even attempt to hide what they are, because they apparently don't need to. The rooms are often named in explicitly clear terms as locations for the distribution and sharing of underage imagery. Some rooms contain age brackets, ages 8 to 12, 4 to 6, etc. Some contain even more shocking descriptors that I won't even verbally say right now. And these rooms are filled with hundreds or thousands of participating members who seem to be redirecting traffic where possible to Onion URLs or other ClearNet forums. It appears to be a cesspit of the highest order, but there's more. Discord, another popular messaging platform, had a problem somewhat recently where the infrastructure was being used to host malware. Tons of it. I did a whole video on that subject. The way Discord operated allowed users to upload media and then link to it, a content distribution network is what it's called, regardless of its location on the server, which allowed bad actors to co-opt that framework for the purpose of spreading malicious code. Discord obviously undertook extensive efforts to solve this problem, and they mostly did, but Matrix has that same issue, only far worse. With Matrix, any home server can be used to distribute illegal content. Matrix is, by design, a media proxy, meaning that any home server on the Matrix network can be made to display and download content from any other home server on that network as well, and the system itself is completely unauthenticated, making it so that a criminal, if they so choose, can distribute illegal content through someone else's home server on the network. Hopefully, everyone can start to see the glaringly obvious problems. The Matrix.org home server seems to have become a breeding ground for the worst type of content you can possibly imagine at a staggering scale, and requires a few questions to be asked, chief among them, what's being done about it? Well, the answer to that question is a bit complicated, but according to analysis by a group of server admins, as well as the public commit history archive, Matrix.org actually delisted almost 100,000 rooms simultaneously, then restricting the ability for new rooms to be created for months on end when confronted by all of this. For perspective, that's well over half of all the rooms in the entire directory for a server which is itself the largest home server on the Matrix platform, or at least was. However, while all these rooms were certainly made less accessible, they were not actually suspended or deleted in all cases. At least some of them were simply removed from the public search function and hidden, which meant that the activity going on would continue unabated in the background because these chat rooms that had been previously co-opted by pedophiles appear to be still there. Beyond that, a second burning question is what else should be done about it, and this is where, once again, we need definitions. Preventing the online spread of abusive content is a perpetual battle online, where one of the more common techniques employed by governments and large corporations is called hash lists. Image hash lists are developed and curated by a variety of organizations, such as the IWF, the Internet Watch Foundation, or the NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. But the basic mechanics go like this, according to the IWF at least. Images of known abuse material get broken down to a hash, which is kind of like a digital fingerprint. After that, they get added to a list, and then that list gets used by various tech companies to prevent the upload or distribution of known criminal imagery through their platforms. They basically use a database of digital fingerprints to compare media hosted on their platform, quickly identifying and therefore removing known illegal content, and it's pretty straightforward. Obviously, that technique runs into trouble when dealing with encrypted messaging, but OLM encryption, which is what Matrix uses, breaks down pretty bad in public settings of more than, give or take, 50 users, and a lot of these chat rooms have hundreds or thousands of users. What I'm saying here is that pretty much all of the major chat rooms are public, not encrypted, so they could easily implement a hash list system like this and have dramatic results. That's what I'm trying to say. Implementing a hash list is obviously imperfect, but it could greatly reduce the size and scope of the problems on Matrix by removing the ability for multi-thousand member public rooms of abuse to function unimpeded on their infrastructure. That's the point. Logically, understanding how much of a difference this could make, one has to ask the question, why is a company that holds tens of millions of dollars in government contracts, also funded by Element, which has a direct working relationship with the German military and the French legislature, why is a company in that position not using or implementing these well-established industry-standard protocols to prevent widespread abuse of their platform, namely their own home server? Also, if they are, which there seems to be no indication of, why are they refusing to communicate with high-level admins in their own community about precautions and prevention methods to stop the spread of this problem? None of it adds up. To be completely honest, I don't have an answer for that. I can't say with any degree of certainty what should be done because no perfect solution exists, but I can say that from everything I've been shown so far, Matrix is contending with an overwhelming issue, where the platform that they created has been infiltrated and nearly subsumed by a massive horde of criminals who have identified it as possibly the most susceptible online community hub right now for the upload, distribution, and namely sharing of content that should not exist. It's a problem that any federated communication platform will ultimately face, intrinsic to the idea of peer-to-peer or censorship-resistant spaces, but the idealistic world of peer-to-peer messaging protocols assumes that the individuals responsible for hosting all of that content, not just using the service, will take at least some sort of rudimentary precautions. Sadly, at least from what I see, Matrix has rapidly fallen behind in that effort, while the network is used in a multitude of nefarious ways by hundreds of thousands of people who have now identified it as the safest place for them to exist. Ultimately, my final question is, when will all of this get dealt with? Various admins and moderators in the Matrix community have become more and more vocal as of late as they push for an answer on what can be done or when. The topic has become a bit of an open secret, generally speaking, and with plenty of money, plenty of resources, and plenty of reputational motive at stake here, why has nothing been done sooner? Honestly, I have no idea. Matrix is routinely asking for support from their community or donations, seemingly indicating that they struggle financially, but I can't reconcile that atmosphere when they have actual governments on their client list with law enforcement bodies and other high-level, high-value contracts on the books. It just doesn't add up to me. But for now, that's about all I have. Matrix, while presenting obvious value in its pursuit of being a censorship resistant messaging platform, even so far as to be the basis for products that are sold to clandestine agencies and law enforcement, appears to be failing, at least in my opinion, at proper moderation of their technology, namely their own home server on the network. The result is a platform that now houses a horrifying amount of the worst content you can possibly imagine, with no end in sight, while what remains of their legitimate non criminal community repeatedly asks them for some sort of help. Hopefully, they'll get it. That's it. If you want to support the channel, there are links down below, a special high value VPN deal, various social media, merchandise, locals, and Patreon for monthly memberships, of course, and more, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, question everything, and have a nice night.